My name is Camille Darden. I'm 37 years old, and this happened at our family's annual Thanksgiving dinner, the one I cooked alone. I stood at the head of the table, still wearing the old apron that had belonged to my mom. The house smelled like rosemary, butter, and pie crust. I'd been on my feet since 6 a.m., no one offered to help, not even to set the table. 20 chairs filled. Every plate perfect, every guest full of expectations, not gratitude. I raised my glass, my hand shaking slightly. I just want to say thank you. I know mom and dad aren't sept here, but I sep and glad we sup are still holding on. Still trying. Honestly, Camille, Leona cut in, her wine glass already half empty. We don't still want your sob stories. You sit your burden. We want to live without you now. Silence. A few forks clinked awkwardly, someone stifled a laugh. I couldn't tell who. Greg, her husband, leaned back with a smug grin and whispered something to his sister. My cousin Lisa pulled out her phone, already scrolling. No one met my eyes. No one said a word. I froze. I didn't blink. I didn't move. My face felt hot, but my hands had gone cold. My chest was tight, and for a second I thought I might throw up right there in front of the sweet potatoes and cranberry sauce. I sat down, slowly. My plate was still empty. Nobody noticed. If you've ever had someone you love humiliate you in front of a room full of people, and not a single soul stood up for you, then you already know. You already know that silence is louder than any insult. If you've ever felt invisible at your own table, like share or comment. I didn't disappear that night. But I wanted to. Later I cleared the plates while they sat in the living room laughing. Leona's heels clacked on my hardwood floor as she made jokes about my sad little house. They brought nothing. They took everything. I stood in the kitchen, scraping leftovers into containers they wouldn't even take home. They said they were trying to eat clean, but they left their mess behind, as usual. That night, after everyone left, I washed the dishes by hand, one by one. The way mom used to. The water turned cold before I was even halfway done, but I didn't stop. I didn't cry. Not that night. I just kept thinking about Leona Seft's voice in my head, sharp, cold, clean. You stare a burden, we want to live without you. I thought about all the birthdays I paid for when she was in school. About the down payment I helped them with. About how I gave up my own dreams because someone had to keep the family going. And I thought about how not a single person at that table remembered. I went upstairs to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, still in that old apron. My back ached. My legs were sore. But more than anything I was tired. Tired of being useful. Tired of being forgotten. I didn't plan anything big that night, nothing dramatic, nothing loud. I just opened my drawer, pulled out the folder I hadn't touched in years, the one with my father's original will, the one Leona had sworn got lost in probate. And for the first time in a long time, I started reading, slowly, carefully, like it was the only thing in the world I could trust. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done sitting quietly at their table. I was 19 when mom died. I still remember how quiet the house got after her funeral. Leona cried herself to sleep for weeks. Greg wasn't even around then. It was just me, her, and the walls that felt too big without mom's voice bouncing off them. I had a scholarship letter in my hand the day after the funeral. I never opened it, I just folded it and put it away. Someone had to keep the house running. Someone had to feed Leona, get her to school, pay the bills. That someone was me. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. I didn't complain. I told myself it was just for a while, just until Leona got into college. She wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to sleep for 8 hours just once. But dreams were for people who had time. When she got into med school, I was the first person she called. I stayed up all night making a cake from scratch. She didn't even take a slice before running off to celebrate with friends. Later, when Greg came along, he had no job, no credit, no savings. But he had charm. She fell fast. They needed help with a down payment. I gave them my savings, every cent I'd tucked away for a car, for a life, for maybe even a break. They bought a 5-bedroom place on the edge of town, called it a new start, said I'd always be welcome. I didn't ask for anything back. I just smiled and handed them the check. I moved back into the house. Mom left behind. Paint was peeling, the heater barely worked. But it was quiet, and I told myself that was enough. When Dad died, I thought maybe things would shift. Maybe Lilona would come around. Instead, she took over everything. The funeral, the estate, the paperwork. I didn't even get a copy of the will. She said it had all been handled. I didn't know then what that really meant. I was still paying off medical bills from a surgery I had the year before. I'd lost my job at the office because I missed too many days. But I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want pity. The calls slowed down. Invitations stopped. Except for holidays. I was still useful then, still expected to host, cook, serve, clean, still the helper, still the unpaid maid of the family. I never married. Never had kids. I told myself it was my choice. But really, who had time? Who had energy? At night I'd sit in the old kitchen with a cup of cold tea wondering how a life could shrink so small without anyone noticing. Sometimes I'd scroll through Leona's posts. Their new kitchen, their European vacations, their smiling faces. People wrote comments like hash goals and perfect family. And I'd sit there with dishes in the sink and silence in my chest. I thought being needed meant being loved. I thought sacrifice would earn me a place. But I was just a placeholder, a convenient ghost. The night of that Thanksgiving dinner, something snapped in me. It didn't crack. It didn't scream, it just shifted. Because while clearing out the hall closet after everyone left, I saw a torn brown folder. No label, dusty. I opened it. I read the first line. My father Septa's name, his signature. The words equal shares. And suddenly, all the silence in my life made sense. They didn't forget me. They erased me. The attic was hotter than I remembered. Dust stuck to my skin like guilt. I wasn't even sure why I went up there. Maybe I just needed air, or distance, or a reason to believe I hadn't imagined everything they'd done to me. I moved old boxes, cracked photo frames, things I hadn't touched since Dad's funeral. A stack of yellowed folders sat in a broken plastic bin. Most were junk, receipts, church flyers, unpaid bills. But one folder was different. Brown leather, heavy, no label. Just tucked beneath a box of Christmas lights like it didn't want to be found. I opened it and saw my father Septa's name. My breath stopped. I sat right there on the dusty floor and read every page, slowly, carefully, his handwriting, his initials, his signature, all over a will I'd never seen before. He'd left everything equally, split down the middle between Leona and me, house, savings, land. That's not what Leona told me. She said there was no official will, said Dad never finalized it, said the lawyer couldn't locate a signed version. I believed her. She was always the one with answers, the one who handled things. But this was real. I turned the pages again, just to be sure. The paper smelled like old wood and time. I remember Dad sitting at the kitchen table, pen in hand, saying, "You sub'll be taken care of, Camille. I promise." He did promise, and she buried it. If you've ever been lied to by someone you trusted with your whole heart, if you've ever been written out of your own family story, then you know, that kind of pain doesn't scream. It sinks, like lead in your chest. Like silence that never ends. If you felt it, like share or comment. I thought I was forgotten. I wasn't. I was erased. I packed the folder gently and brought it downstairs. My hands were shaking. I didn't even change clothes. I drove straight to a lawyer's office. I found online, walk-ins welcome. The receptionist asked for my name twice. I couldn't even say it properly. My throat was dry. The lawyer's name was Mr. Conway. He was kind, quiet. He read through the folder in silence, flipping each page twice. Then he looked at me and asked one question. "Do you have a copy of the current deed?" I said yes. Leona had sent me a scan when I asked years ago just to keep me informed. I pulled it up from my email. He looked at both signatures. "Camille, this one sip's not a match," he said. "Not even close." He explained the process. Forensics, signature experts, filing a claim. He asked if I wanted to pursue it. I didn't say yes. I said, "I want to know how far they were willing to go." He nodded. Leona forged that paper, or maybe she had someone else do it. Either way, it was fake, and everything they built, Greg's new clinic, their house, the pool, the kitchen renovation, was sitting on a lie. The lawyer gave me a list of steps. I took notes. My hand didn't stop shaking. I got back home after dark. The house felt smaller, colder. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on the couch with the will in my lap. I thought about Dad, about how much he loved order, how disappointed he'd be to know what she did. But mostly I thought about Leona's voice at that dinner table, telling me I was a burden, laughing while I sat there with an empty plate. She thought I was nothing. She thought I'd stay quiet. But I wasn't set just holding a folder. I was holding the first brick of her perfect empire. And it was about to fall. Greg's voice echoed through the hallway when I called. Camille, what now? Not hi. Not how are you. Just that, cold and clipped. I asked for a copy of the home deed. Said I was updating some files. There was a pause. Then he laughed. Sure, I'll have Leona send it. But you know this place is ours now, right? I didn't answer. I let the silence sit. He hung up. I knew what I was dealing with. Arrogance. Carelessness. People so sure I'd stay quiet. They didn't even hide their lies properly. That's what made this easier. They thought I was still the maid, still the one who cleaned up after them. They didn't know I had a lawyer now. A real one. Quiet. Sharp. The kind who listened more than he talked. We met at his office downtown. He read the will I found, the forged signature, and didn't blink. It's textbook, he said. Real estate fraud. We'll need proof, but this isn't unusual. I hated how calm he was, but I needed calm. I'd had enough loud. He gave me a list of everything I needed. Bank statements, property transfers, old tax filings. I dug through closets and boxes for days. Found files I didn't even know I had. Cross-referenced dates, highlighted amounts. At night I'd sit at my kitchen table with sticky notes and black tea, my father's voice echoing in my head. Always keep records, Camille, paper tells the truth. Then I created a new Facebook account. Fake name, generic photos. Just enough to look real. I sent a friend request to one of Greg's old coworkers, someone he used to golf with. Accepted in 2 hours. From there it took 5 clicks to reach his circle. I watched their posts, read their comments, noted every tag. Greg bragged a lot online. He posted about his clinic expansion, new business partners, trips labeled consulting retreats. One video stood out. Him standing outside a new building shaking hands with a man I recognized, an orthopedic consultant who lost his license last year for billing fraud. I double-checked, same face, same name. Greg's caption read, "Building greatness with great minds." I saved everything. My lawyer started digging deeper. He found flagged payments, shell accounts, money moving in and out of the clinic under the name advisory fees. Leona wasn't just complicit, she was listed as a silent partner. Her signature was on 2 of the transfers. She'd funneled money through the house, my father's house, to back Greg's shady deals. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just kept working. Every file I scanned, every post I saved, brought me closer. They robbed my home. I was about to rob their peace. But I didn't best want noise. I wanted theater. So I picked up the phone and called Leona. "Hi," I said. My voice was even. "What is it now?" she asked, already tired. I said, "Been thinking," I said, "about the dinner. I think I overreacted. I want to make things right. Come over next weekend. Both of you." I said, "We'll cook." She paused, caught off guard. Then that same fake warmth I knew too well. "Of course, that's sweet of you." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Same table as always?" she asked. "Same table," I said. "Only this time the seats wouldn't be mine to serve. They'd be theirs to lose." I watched Leona's car pull into the driveway like it still belonged to her. She stepped out in heels too high for a family dinner, holding a pie she definitely didn't bake. Greg followed, sunglasses on like he was arriving at a red carpet event. They didn't knock. They never did. I opened the door and smiled. "Come in, dinner's almost ready." My voice was calm, light. I felt nothing. Not fear, not nerves. Just stillness. They walked past me like guests of honor. The dining room looked warm, soft. Candles flickered, napkins folded just right, glasses catching the light. It looked like peace. It was bait. We sat. I served. Leona complimented the roast but wrinkled her nose at the sides. Greg poured too much wine. They laughed too loud. I pressed the small recorder tucked under the tablecloth. So I said, pouring myself water, you must feel proud. Owning Dad's house, everything he built. Leona sipped her wine. Well, somebody had to step up. Greg chuckled. Yeah, can Seth let the past hold us down? I tilted my head. Wasn't Seth there something about equal shares? Leona didn't flinch. She leaned back smiling. Oh please. You really think Dad would Seth left half of this place to you? You were barely around. I stayed still. I lived here. You existed here, she said. Greg raised his glass, to finally getting rid of the dead weight. I smiled. I lifted my glass too, not to toast, to mark the moment. Every word they said was clear, every cruel joke crisp. I didn't argue, I didn't defend. I just kept feeding them. Greg joked about their lawyer cleaning up the old will. Leona said, no one questions a grieving daughter. They were proud of what they'd done, confident, unafraid. That's what made it easy. They finished dessert. Didn't Tat offer to help clean up? Greg made a comment about how I finally learned to entertain. Leona checked her phone, rolled her eyes and said, anyway, we'll let you get back to your little life. I walked them to the door, smiled as they left. When the door closed, I locked it. I sat back down in my chair, reached under the table, and pressed stop. In their arrogance they confessed everything. All I had to do was smile and press save. 2 weeks later the walls began to shake. Greg called me at 6:42 a.m. His voice was tight. Did you do something? No good morning, no greeting, just panic. I said nothing. He cursed and hung up. I already knew. 2 days earlier, my lawyer filed the complaint. Everything we had, paperwork, proof, recordings, was sent where it needed to go. The IRS got the clinic's financials. The county office got the forged deed. The whistleblower report was anonymous, but I didn't need credit. I needed impact. That morning Greg's clinic was flagged for audit, unusual deductions, suspicious consulting fees, shell accounts tied to defunct addresses. A full review was underway. Every number they buried was crawling back to the surface. I heard from a neighbor later that day. Leona had stormed out of her house in tears. A man in a suit handed her a thick envelope on the porch. She threw it on the ground, then picked it back up, shaking. That was the legal notice. My name was on it. Camille Darden, not an afterthought, not a burden, a plaintiff. If you've ever been gaslit, erased, ignored, and then finally heard, then you understand. The silence I lived with was brutal, but the silence I returned, that was justice. If you've ever felt that shift, like, share or comment. They weren't scared of me. They were scared of the truth with my name on it. Their joint account was frozen for review. Transactions blocked, credit lines paused. Greg's office assistant leaked to a friend that payroll bounced, staff started quitting. Patients canceled. Leona's phone went quiet. No more invites. No more fundraisers. The HOA board held a vote. I watched the recording online. They called it a matter of ethical transparency. Leona was removed as chair, no applause, just silence. And a short announcement. She didn't speak, she walked out. I didn't gloat. I didn't call them. I just let the letters, the emails, the system do its job. Every time I opened my mailbox, I expected a knock at the door, a message, a warning. But nothing came. They weren't brave enough. I made tea in the same kitchen I cleaned after every holiday they pretended to host. The same kitchen they used to walk into without knocking. Now the quiet felt earned. Every creak in the floor felt like a whisper that said, you did the right thing. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I just let the truth sit beside them like a guest they never invited. But I wasn't done. Not until they saw me, truly saw me. The courtroom was colder than I expected. The kind of cold that lives in old buildings and older grudges. I sat still, hands folded in my lap, my name echoing from the clerk's mouth as the case began. Camille Darden versus Leona Hall and Gregory Hall. I didn't flinch. Leona walked in wearing beige like it made her smaller, safer. Greg kept his head down, his tie loose like he didn't care. But I saw his jaw tighten when he spotted my lawyer. The same lawyer who had every document, every signature, every transfer lined up like soldiers behind truth. We stood, swore in. My heart beat steady. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. The judge asked for opening remarks. My lawyer kept it simple. Your Honor, this is a case of intentional estate fraud, supported by forged documents, financial misrepresentation, and verified witness statements. No theatrics, just facts. Then the will came out. The real one, my father's signature, dated, clear, witnessed. The original, not the doctored version they filed 2 years later. The judge looked it over. Has this been verified? A graphologist took the stand. Calm, neutral. The signature on the contested deed does not match Mr. Darden Fine's handwriting. It is, without doubt, a forgery. Leona shook her head before he even finished. I didn't know, she whispered. Greg leaned toward his mic. I plead the fifth. That's when the room went quiet. No one moved. I could hear the scratch of a pen, the faint creak of a bench behind me. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just looked at Leona. She turned her face slightly, but not before I caught the panic in her eyes. She had built a fortress on lies, and now it was crumbling right in front of her. The judge reviewed the exhibits, the bank transfers, the audit findings. The voicemail Greg left on my phone last week thinking he was calling someone else, bragging about how easy it was to push Camille out of the picture. The judge sighed. This is clear. The deed is invalid. The court recognizes Camille Darden as the rightful co-owner of the estate and grants her full ownership due to fraudulent handling. Additionally, the defendants are liable for damages. A separate hearing will determine the amount. I stood when told. Looked at my sister, really looked. You told me I was a burden, I said, voice low. Now you spur free. Of the house, the money, and your reputation. She didn't answer. She didn't answer. She didn't answer. They walked out like ghosts. I stayed. It was always my home. The house was quiet again, no clicks of heels on the floor, no forced laughter, no eyes rolling at the food I'd spent all day making, just the hum of the oven, and the soft clatter of dishes as I set the table. 1 year, that's how long it had been since I saw Leona's face in court, since Greg looked at me like I didn't exist, since I stood in front of a judge and watched every lie unravel. I still used the same table, same chairs, same plates. But everything felt different. Lighter, clean. The turkey was smaller this time. No need to cook for 20 people who never thanked me. Just a few plates for the people who mattered now. Miss Harper from the community center, Marcus from the corner store, and little Ellie, the girl I started tutoring last spring. Not family by blood, but real. Present kind. I placed one last plate at the end of the table, across from mine. Just one empty. I didn't cry. I didn't linger. I just stood there for a second and let it be what it was. A quiet reminder. Not of who left, but of who I'd finally let go. The front door creaked, voices floated in, warm coats rustled off, hands reached for trays. I smiled as I took their things, led them to the dining room. No one asked who the extra plate was for. No one needed to. We sat. We ate. We talked. There were pauses, but not the kind that hurt, just room to breathe. I kept glancing at that plate. Not with bitterness, not even grief, just peace. It sat there like a boundary, a full stop, a soft line between the life I survived and the one I was building. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means I'm not wasting another meal on people who never fed me.